Guys, today we are going to discuss one of the most important concept in microservices-based architecture. So, what is that concept? That is GraphQL. So, what we are going to discuss? First of all, we'll discuss why GraphQL. So, I mean, before GraphQL, how we are developing the applications. So, mostly we are developing the application using RESTful APIs. So, how the RESTful APIs is working? What are the limitation of RESTful APIs? And how that limitation is going to be overcome by GraphQL. Then we'll discuss how to implement GraphQL in our microservices based architecture. So basically, all the theoretical concept, first of all, we'll try to understand, then we'll see how we can implement this in our real time application, right? See, so basically, you need to understand one thing. So what is that thing? Now, before GraphQL, I mean, before learning GraphQL, what we have learned so far? So far, we have learned RESTful services. RESTful services means what? Now, it is exposing the endpoint that is going to be consumed by the client. So it is exposing some endpoint that is going to be consumed by the client. So basically, right, as you can see, whenever we are working with REST-based architecture, what are the limitations? So in REST-based architecture, four major limitations are there. So once, if you understand these four major limitations, then you will understand what is the need for a GraphQL. So one of the limitation is overfetching. Sir, what do you mean by overfetching? Now let me give you one clarity. So whenever you are developing any RESTful services, right? So those services are going to be consumed by many different kind of clients. So one is you can consider mobile clients. One is going to be some third-party services. One is going to be your web client, right? Sometimes it is can be a desktop application. So basically, once you develop the services are going to be consumed by different clients. And again, guys, remember the client needs is going to be changed right over the period of time. So, what do you mean by client needs? For example, mobile network, right? In mobile application, I don't want to show the complete details. If one order is placed, that order detailed information I might not be showing in the mobile network. So here I can, if in mobile case, I can show some limited data. But in case of a right web application, I want to show all the complete details. Similarly, if it is a desktop application, the detailed information I want to show. Similarly, some third-party application, they might need some little information. So as the client requirement is changing, right, from one type of a client to a different type of a client, then how we can handle this thing? So basically, overfetching means what? Now I am returning the complete details. As a client, whether you need those informations or not, I don't care. I'm giving the information, you just use it. For example, mobile client, he need only 5 information and you are returning 20 information. Those 15 informations are useless for that client. That means what? Even though I only need 5 information, you are giving me 20 information means what? Overfetching. So with RESTful services, there is something called overfetching. Clear? What do you mean by overfetching? Overfetching means REST will return the complete data to the client, even though some of the data might not needed by the client. So if you take the real-time analogy, right? So, getting the entire textbook's photocopy when you just needed 2 pages of notes. So, one book is there, that book's content 20 pages. You only need 2 pages data. But what exactly you are getting? You are getting the complete book itself, right? So, that is nothing but your overfetching. Clear? What do you mean by overfetching?
Yes.
Clear or not? Second one is
Yeah.
underfetching. Underfetching means what? Now, right, for example, for order details, right? For the order details phase, what I need the order information, I need the customer information, I need the product information, I need all this information I need. So what exactly it means? It means if I want all this information, then what I need to do? I need to create multiple. I need to invoke multiple APIs. So one API going to return me the customer data. Another API is going to return me the right product information. Another API is going to return me the order information. Basically, what exactly it means? It means whatever data I want the right to display in the page, that data I'm not getting in a single API call. So basically, in that case, what you are doing, you are creating multiple APIs right? And as a client, I'm going to consume multiple APIs. Why? Because there is something called underfetching. Whatever the data I record, I'm not getting all those information in a single API call. So I have to call multiple API call. That is nothing but you can say there are too many round trips, right? Between what I can say, client and the server. If you take the simple example, suppose you want to buy some product. So if you want to buy some product, then you are right with the RESTful services. What is happening? You are visiting multiple shops. You are visiting multiple shops. Tell me, visiting multiple shops to get all the information is good, or getting all the information from a single shop is good? Definitely the single shop, but that is not possible with the GraphQL. Now you might be one question, sir, what is the problem? In that case, we can overcome that problem using the first approach. We can create one API where I can return the data. But again, guys, remember that is not our requirement, right? In that case, right? For example, the mobile client, he only need right product data, but the web client, he need product payment and user details. So in that case, so it is going to work well for the mobile client, but the right web client, he has to call multiple APIs, right? Because he needs the detailed information. Clear? Overfetching means we are returning everything in a single API call. So that might be cause some issue related to the mobile client. Underfetching means we are not providing every information. So if they need every information, they have to call multiple APIs. Clear? Clear or not? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
The next one is and who is there? Guys, my screen is not visible.
Yes,
Yes.
No,
visual.
it's visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Visible.
Okay. So the next one is going to be endpoint explosion. Right? So what do you mean by endpoint explosion? Endpoint explosion means what? Now you can see currently one client is there and I'm creating one API which is returning the product information. And if I want to avoid this overfetching and underfetching concept, then what I can do is I can create one API which is going to return the product data. I can create another API which is going to create a product which is going to return product and customer data. I can create another API, right, which is going to return all the information. That means what? As there are multiple clients, for each client requirement, I can create one endpoint. Guys, if you are doing this, definitely it is nothing but endpoint explosion to satisfy each and every client. I'm not going to create a different endpoint, which is very dangerous from the maintenance point of view, right? From the right only maintenance and repeat development. Repeat means writing the same logic, right? Again and again at multiple right places to satisfy the client needs. That you should avoid, right? For the right endpoint explosion is very dangerous. Right? I should not create a different endpoint based on the client requirement. So that's what you need to take into consideration. So again, right, multiple clients, definitely multiple clients, they need right different set of data, different requirement, right? That client requirement is going to be changed right over the period of time. So we need to 100%. These are the issues, but at the same time, we cannot avoid this multiple client, right? Once size fit all API doesn't work across multiple devices, right? So for each device, the data 100% is going to be changed. Some device need more data, some device need less data. And to overcome all these problems, right, what we need to do, we need to introduce GraphQL. So whatever the overfetching, underfetching, endpoint explosion are there, and all these rate coming into the picture because of the multiple clients needs and the requirement. So to satisfy multiple clients and needs, multiple clients needs and requirements, and to overcome all these problems, what is the solution? The solution is GraphQL. And why we are already facing this problem? The problem we are facing because in this case with RESTful API, who will decide the right response format? The server will decide the right response format. What data to be returned? Right to the client, that is going to be defined by the servers. As server is taking the responsibility what to return to the client, we are facing all these problems, and we can overcome these problems right by using GraphQL. So what is exactly GraphQL? So GraphQL means what? Like, it is a query language for APIs, and it also provides a runtime engine, right? So basically you can consider this is something like if you are working with right, SQL server. SQL server is the database. So in that SQL server database, right, there might be two or four or five tables. Now, using SQL, can I decide what data I want to fetch? If I want data from all the table, if I want data from the few table, can I write some SQL query and get the data as expected? Yes or no?
Yeah.
So you can write SQL join, complex data required complex joining query. You can write only one table data you need. You can write select column name from the table name. So basically, what is this GraphQL? Now this GraphQL, it is a query language for the APIs and the runtime engine. What exactly it means? It means it is providing some kind of a schema to the right user as a user, whether I'm going to user means what? I'm the consumer of the services. So consumer of the services means whoever going to consume the services, it will provide a schema to that consumer, and using that schema, the consumer will decide what data he wants. So basically, what exactly it means? It means I want, it means as a consumer, whether you are the mobile app or whether you are a website, a desktop application, whatever, you can decide what data you want. And that data going to be written by the server. So in RESTful architecture, server is deciding what data to be returned to the client. In case of a GraphQL, client will decide what data I want as part of the response, and that data going to be written by the server. Clear? So what data is going to be written by the server, if that is going to be defined by the client, then is there any kind of these problems? Can I face this problem? No. So mobile client, they want few information. They can tell to the server, hey, Mr. Server, can you please return me this information? Web client, they need more data. They can specify, yes, can you please return me, right, all the informations. So in that case, what will happen? Now there is no overfetching, no underfetching options are coming into the picture. So client will decide exactly what they need, and that information going to be written by the server. Again, with GraphQL, this endpoint explosion is going to be completely reduced. I will create a single endpoint. I will create a single endpoint. That endpoint is going to return whatever the data requested by the client. Client requested, okay, I need only product and order data. Okay, that product and order information is going to be written by the GraphQL endpoint. The client specify, no, I need only the customer data. Okay, that customer data is going to be written by the endpoint, right? That GraphQL endpoint. Even in client, customer, and right, what I can say, order, whatever the properties, right, you need. I mean, I need the order ID, order name, right? Order number. And sometimes you need order ID, order name, order number, order date, right? Order status. So anything, right? Whatever the information you need, it is very similar to the select clause. In select clause, what you are specifying the column name. So whatever column name you specified, you are only getting those column values. In the same way, the GraphQL specifies, okay, you need data, that's fine. Whatever the data you need, you just tell me as a GraphQL, right? I can tell the server, and server can only return those data to you. And for that purpose, right, GraphQL provided two information. One is a runtime engine, and another one is a right query language. So this query language is going to contain all the informations. All the informations means how you can execute the query, and whatever the query that is going to be sent by the right client, that query is going to be executed by this runtime engine. So this query language means the schema. Schema is used by the client, and whatever the query that is sent by the client, that is going to be executed by the runtime engine. So if you take the real-time analogy, right? If I am going to compare this GraphQL with REST, right? REST is like ordering a fixed combo meal. So basically, you went to one restaurant, there is a thali system, right? One combo meal. So you order that. So what you will get? You will get a predefined fixed items. Even if you need some of the item, that's fine. You might also get some item which you don't need. So that what exactly it means? REST means you will get what is going to be decided by the server. With GraphQL, what is happening? Now you are telling to the right waiter, hey waiter, can you please bring me a plate of rice, dal, sabji, whatever exact item you need, that what you are telling to the waiter, and the waiter will respond with only those items, no additional item, no extra, no more, no less. Right? So REST is optimized for standard predefined responses that is going to be same for all the clients. GraphQL is optimized for customized client specific data needs. So client will decide what data they need. Clear?
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Now, in the interview, the interviewer might be asked you one question. Can you please elaborate the difference between REST and a GraphQL? Right? So let us try to understand. REST is built around resources. Resources means what? Now each resource is going to expose some endpoint, and you can do access those endpoint using HTTP method. For example, if you take the example of product, you can create one resource to get the product information. You can create another resource, right, to get the product information by ID. Create one product, update one product. That means what? Each resource should have a unique identifier, and each resource, right, you can access using different HTTP methods like get, post, put, patch, delete, right? But GraphQL is built around data requirements. So here it is not related to resources, it is related to data. So it usually exposes a single endpoint, and that single endpoint exactly, right, as a client you can use that single endpoint to specify what data you need. So it is not related to resources, it is more related to endpoint. So number of endpoint, right? For example, if there are multiple clients and each client requirement is different, then what I can go with the multiple endpoints. Multiple endpoint means one endpoint for getting the order by ID, another endpoint for getting all the orders, right? So multiple. Again, I can create one endpoint which is going to return for me few data. I can create another endpoint which is going to return more data. But with the GraphQL, we are going to create only one endpoint. REST is a server driven means what? In case of REST, what response to be returned, that is going to be defined by the server. And the graph is client driven. Client driven means what? Whatever the data, right? The client wants, the client can only specify, and the server is going to respond. So overfetching and underfetching with REST, you can face the problem of overfetching and underfetching, but that is not right available, or you can say that what you can avoid using GraphQL. Fetching related data, right? For example, you load the customer, and for that customer associated order, for each order the associated order items, for each order the associated payment, you can invoke multiple API calls. But with right, what I can say with GraphQL, you in a single call you can also get those related data. API versioning, right, you need to implement with V1, right, V2. For example, one API you created, which is going to be used by the some old client. So you need some additional data, right? New version you are creating. So you can specify V1, V2, right? V1 going to be used by old client, V2 is going to be used by new client, right? You will not face with the GraphQL. In GraphQL, right, you are not creating multiple version. You are just adding the new fields to the right. What I can say to the schema, and accordingly, right, it will work, right? The same API can work with the old client, same API can also work with the new client. So use cases, so basically if it is a simple and stable API with the predefined data needs fixed response, go with REST API. If it is a complex and UI driven application where different UI need different set of data, multiple client requirement, multiple clients are there, each client requirement, the data requirement is going to be changed, then you can go with the GraphQL. Which one is better? There is no universal boss. Right? You cannot say that REST is better over GraphQL or GraphQL is better over REST. Each are having specific requirement. If your API is simple and you always wants to respond with a predefined set of data, go with REST, which is very easy to implement. If it is, if the data requirement is going to be changed, right, by client to client, then you have to go with the GraphQL, because in that case, the client can decide, right, what data they need as part of the response. Clear? Clear, guys? If someone asks you what is the difference
yeah,
between
clear.
and GraphQL, you need to tell this thing now. So that is fine, but how to implement GraphQL? See, To implement the GraphQL, right, we need to provide some kind of a schema. Schema means we need to tell to the client, hey, this is one method. This method accepts this input parameter, and each input parameter type is this one. This method can return this output parameter. Some of the output parameter are mandatory, some of the output parameter are optional, some of the output parameter can be nested. So whichever parameter you need as part of the response, you can specify, right? So all this is schema information we need to provide. So now what we need to do, we need to understand the core building blocks. So how these things are going to be implemented practically. So practically means technically. So technically what we need to do, we need to understand, right, five things. The core building blocks of a GraphQL is a consist of five things: schema, types and fields, queries, mutation, and the subscriptions. So schema means this is the contract. Contract means what? Now this schema is going to specify, right, what are the read operations available, what are the write operations available. For read operations, right, uh, whatever the input parameter required, what are the output data is required, right? All these informations are going to be exposed to the client, and that is what going to be exposed by the schema. So whatever the information you specified, only those information the client can use. For example, if I created one schema for the customer data, and if that schema contain five properties, then out of these five properties, the client can specify what data he needs. He cannot specify anything, right, which is not available as part of the schema. And this schema makes the application strongly typed. Strongly typed means the client can only specify those informations which are available to be, right, served by the server. So schema, this is going to be shared between client and server. How the things are going to be handled. See, in our application, we need to define something called the types and fields. So types and fields means what? See, in our application, how we are responding data, how we are returning the data to the client. So basically, we are using something called DTOs or models. Am I right? I'm creating one class. That class, I mean DTO or model. Using that DTO or model, I'm returning the data to the client. Is the approach what we are developing or what we are using till now? Yes or no?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So basically, so this is types and fields means what? Type and fields means what? Now, for example, going to return, right? For example, this is my common method, and here you can see one order summary DTO we created. So you can see order summary response, product info, order info. This is the DTO what I am returning, and this DTO containing these properties. So what exactly in GraphQL we need to do? We need to create a type for each input model, for each output model. Sir, what do you mean by input model and output model? See, in this case, whatever the DTO we created here, these are the response DTO. But if you look at other services, right, I mean order service, order application, right, here you can note this one. So in the application, we have defined the DTOs. So here you can see, right, cancellation. So some of the response DTO is there, some of the request DTO is there, right? So basically what exactly we need to do. Now, whenever we are working with GraphQL, we are also going to create some C-sharp class. C-sharp class means C-sharp DTOs or models. Why we are creating? See, technically, if you know how to work with the data means you have to work with the data means you have to work with the DTOs or a model. So if you are getting the data, you can create request DTO. If you are returning the data, you need to create response DTO. That one. But this request and response DTO, whatever we are creating, that cannot be easily identified by GraphQL. So we need to tell the GraphQL, hey, Mr. GraphQL, this is my input model. That is my output model. This input model having these properties. Out of these properties are mandatory properties. These properties are optional properties. These properties are of a enum type. So this information we need to inform to the GraphQL, and for that purpose, whatever input model, whatever output model we are having, for each input DTO or model, for each output DTO or model, we need to create a type And again, guys, remember, input type is different, output type is different. So you also need to tell while you are creating this type for GraphQL, you need to tell, yes, this is a input object, this is an output object. This input object contain these properties. So basically, what exactly it means. Now, how many number of input models and output models we are having? For example, if I want to return the order summary information, currently I'm having these 5 models, DTOs. So for these 5 output to rate DTOs, I need to create 5 output types, 5 output types. And in each output type, I need to specify what each properties are there. So this information and whether these properties are mandatory or optional, that's what we need to tell. If this is not clear at the moment, don't worry. I will show you this thing practically. Clear. So types and fields means it is going to define the data structure of the GraphQL. So GraphQL will only check this type fields to decide what are the input parameters required for a method to perform, what are the output parameters the client can specify. And those information we need to tell to the GraphQL by creating these types. Again, types are also 2 types, input types and output types. Yeah, whatever input type we specify, that input type the client can use to send the data, and whatever output we specified here, the client can use those output types to write a request to what response they want, right, from the server. Clear?
Yeah, clear.
Now, so this types is fine, but how the client will know, right? What are the read operations I can perform? What are the write operations I can perform? So for that purpose, what I need to do, we need to define something called queries and mutations. So using this queries, the client can specify, right, what read operation he wants to perform. So basically, this queries means it is very similar to our get operation. So get operation means it is going to retrieve the data from the server. So using queries, we can define what get operations the user can perform. For example, get order summary one get operation. So get right profile information another get operations. So whatever all get operations, right, your application support. So that's what you can specify here. While you are specifying the get operations, you can also tell for this get operation what is the input type and what is the output type. Again, this input type and output type, they are going to be tied with what? They are going to be tied with our input to DTO and output to DTO. And as part of this queries, what you need to do once you got the request and response DTOs. So here you need to define the request and response DTO. So this output queries, they actually going to call your business services. For example, you want to get the data from product microservice. You want to get the data from the order microservice. That internal communication is going to be handled by the queries. Similarly, mutation is to perform the post operations, put operations, and a delete operations. So, for example, you want to place one order. So for placing the order, you have to define one write operation, and that write operation you need to define using mutations. So queries for read operation, mutations for write operation. Subscription means for real-time update. If you are developing some kind of a chatting application, right? Or if you want to automatically write push your changes to the client, right? Then in that case, you can go with the subscription. So this subscription is not available right as part of our microservices project. So these 4 things I'm going to show you: how to define the schema, how to define types and fields, how to define queries, and how to define mutations, and how these things are going to be worked internally, and how the client going to consume our services using GraphQL endpoint. Clear?
Sir, would you demonstrate that subscription as well, like some after later point?
Let me see, for that purpose, I need to write for timing for in our project, microservices project, whatever we develop, that is not possible. For that purpose, you need to write use something called Signal R or some different kind of application you need to develop. That application should have a front end. Because see, front end means what? For example, if you take the example of a ClickBooth, right? A ClickBooth website you
Mm.
know, ClickInfo you know.
Yes, yes,
So
yes, sir.
once you open one right live cricket score, are you refreshing the page or automatically that page getting refreshed?
Automatically getting refreshed.
So that concept is nothing but as part of subscription. Okay? And for that
Okay.
purpose, right, you need some kind of a user interface. right? And that is what we have not really currently supported in our microservices based microservices whatever we are developing. Yes, in future, right, if I got some time, right, particularly what I can say in ASP.NET Core Web API, and when I'm going to consume, right, in Angular application, that means that full stack .NET batch, whenever I'm going to discuss GraphQL, at that time I can allow you to attend that session. Clear?
Sure, sure. So
But
I'm
this
already
is
part of that Angular batch. So yeah, we'll
because in Angular
use it.
I'm developing the front end as well, right? So you can right understand that very easily. But in our case, in this particular microservices, this part is not available,
Okay.
right? So we have
Pranay, I
discussed.
have a query.
Yes.
In the query section, you told that the query will automatically connects to our microservices, each microservice like order.
order.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah. How to
So my
implement that part?
question,
I'm going to show you now. How to develop this queries, how it is going to consume our see. So basically, right? If I want to consume if I want to get the product data, if I want to get the right whatever the other data, other information that respective services I have to call. So what is going to be happening? Now in that case, we are going to develop something called BFF. BFF. Does anyone know what do you mean by BFF?
Backend for content.
What I'm not asking the full.
Backend.
So what is exactly this backend for front end?
Basically, entry
It is
point
it,
for
it is
our
in between
backend.
API and UI.
So
It helps us
basically,
to
it
go.
is exactly. So it is the front end for our backend services. So mostly, if you look at this order summary, right? So we have created one order summary controller. So can I consider this order summary endpoint, right, which we defined in the gateway, is the front end for our backend services, where we are fetching the right order data, product data, customer data, and payment information. Who
yes.
is on mute? Who is on mute? Please mute. Wait, the TV sound is coming. Madhav Sharma. Let me remove him. Okay, because I cannot entertainment this thing, right? So here, so in this case, this order summary controller what we created, can I consider this order summary API what we defined in our gateway is the front end for the backend microservices? Yes or no? If yes, why? If no, why?
I didn't attend this session though, so I don't know what you have written in API gateway. So, but seeing this code, maybe it is yes.
Right. So basically in microservices, what is the job of API gateway? So it is the single entry point for all the external call. Am I right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
particularly in this
Yes,
get
correct.
order summary endpoint, right? That what we created for the right, aggregation. So it is consuming the remaining services. For example, if you go to the implementation, right? So if you go to the implementation part, then that implementation, right, internally, it is calling this thing na fetch customer data, fetch product data, fetch payment data. Yes or no?
Yes.
Right? So in this case, this customer data from where it is getting from the customer microservice. This product data from where it is getting from the product microservice. Same in the case of a payment. So that means what? Now for payment microservice, right? If I'm consuming a microservice from wherever I'm consuming, that is going to be the consumer for that microservice or not. For example, one payment API or one product API is there. So whoever consuming the product API, that consumer can I consider as a front end for that API? Yes or no? So once you got the data, whatever you want to do, you can do. In this case, I'm not showing the data to the customer. I'm consuming the services. So whenever one service consuming other services, the service who is consuming, we can also consider that as the backend for the front end. Clear?
Yeah. Here, can I ask another questions not related to this? Like
Yes.
API gateway, we have a API gateway service in Azure. Generally, I know we can configure there, but I never seen a project created for the API gateway. So here, first time I'm seeing.
See, you just tell me, do you have any prior experience in microservices or no?
Yeah, but I never written a API gateway service. That's why I'm asking.
So
First time I'm
without
seeing.
API gateway, how you can develop microservices? That is not possible. No API gateway means there is no microservices.
No, like I know configuring micro API gateway in Azure, but this is for creating a project for API. First time seeing, so that's why I'm asking.
Oh, see, this is what, right? See, let me give you the clarity. This is not a new session. This session is a continuation session from the last 40 sessions. This
Yeah.
application, whatever I'm showing here, this application we have developed in this live sessions only. So we have different services, gateways there, right? And currently, I'm not in a position, right, to make you understand what is API gateway, why we are creating this gateway.
Yeah, sure, sure. I will see the video. Just so even for deploying an Azure API gateway, we need this, or only for particular API gateway we use this type of approach. That's my
So
question.
that part we have already covered, right? Why we are creating API gateway, right? For example, if you look at this, right, we are having multiple microservices, product microservice, order microservice, payment microservice, net notification microservice, user microservice. So each microservice, right? Let assume here I created 5 to 6. Let assume in your project you are going to have, right, 50 microservices. So do you want to buy 50 different domain for each microservice?
No, no need.
Right? So how many domain you need to buy? One domain. So one domain
Okay.
means what? Where you need to buy that domain. So in that case, we are going to buy that domain for the API gateway. API gateway is not handling any business logic. It is the single entry point. Whenever the client send the request, that request is going to be handled by the API gateway. Then API gateway will decide, right, which load balancer techniques to be used. For example, my product service, it is deployed in 4 different servers, from which server I need to execute that logic. So that is
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
be decided by API gateway.
So this where
And
it is deployed, this run like another application API, or how it is deployed, this
it's a,
API.
it's a API only. It's another API.
Okay, okay, that's what I want. Yeah, thank you.
So now, right, this is going to be your right backend for front end. API gateway, you can consider the backend for the front end. And now within this backend for front end, we need to define the GraphQL endpoint. The client will call this GraphQL endpoint. This GraphQL endpoint, what we are defining within this API gateway project, it is going to make use of the services call. For example, if the client needs the data from user microservice, it will consume the user service. If he needs data from multiple services, multiple services data, this backend for front end or this GraphQL, that is going to handle that one. So how to implement this thing practically? That's what I'm going to discuss now. Clear? Clear, guys? So, right,
Yes.
how to define schema, type, field, storage, mutation, all these things I'm going to show you practically now. Now, you might have one question. So, we have already discussed. So, now within this API, right, we have created this controller, order summary controller, and this order summary controller aggregates the data by consuming different microservices. So now we have already this one. Then what is the need for, right? For example, what is the need for a GraphQL here? So in this case, whatever the data I'm going to return, is that fixed for all the different kind of clients? For example, if you look
Yes.
at this definition, right, it
No.
is going to be the order ID, order information, customer information, list of a product, right? List of a product, then the payment information. All these informations are going to be written by this API. So now, if some client only need this two information, some client needs this two information, some client needs all this information, is that scenario going to be handled by my rate order summary API controller? Is that possible within this endpoint?
No.
Yes or
No.
no? That is not possible. So what we are going to do is we are going to create that scenario. So I will show you one example, right, where we are going to get the data from different microservices. What what response the client need? The client will only decide whatever response he needs. And for that purpose, we are going to implement GraphQL. And as per the recommendation, right, as per the industry standard, to implement GraphQL, what we are going to do, we are going to implement this thing using a package called. Can anybody tell me what is the right mostly used package nowadays for implementing GraphQL? Anyone having any idea?
No, no, sir.
So that package is going to be hot chocolate, right? So we are going to detail, right, create one screen, right, order detail screen. So a customer order detail space, right? For example, a customer order detail space. They need only the basic order information, product and payment data. Admin order screen, they need the full details, right? Mobile screen, they need only a minimal order summary. So basically, different client, different screen, different data need. And this is the perfect scenario for implementing, right? What I can say, GraphQL. Again, as in this case, I'm performing the read operation. So you can consider this is a query. So whenever I'm saying read operation, it is query. Whenever I'm saying write operation, it is mutation. Guys, remember this GraphQL, it is specifically and mostly designed, right, for the data response, right? Whatever the response you want. You cannot compromise with the incoming data. For example, if I want place one order, so whatever the data required for placing one order, I cannot compromise. That data you have to pass. What I can compromise? The response. What response you need? That what you can specify. But whatever the input, I cannot compromise. Because if some data is not sent by the front end, then how I can perform the operation in the back end? You getting my point?
Yes.
Right? So GraphQL will give you benefit in case of a data fetching operations, but that doesn't mean you cannot use GraphQL for write operation. Yes, you can also implement write operation. So both operations I'm going to discuss. So I will show you one example, right, for data fetching, and also I'm going to show you one example for data placing. So basically this order summary, whatever endpoint we created, now we are not going to use this order summary anymore. This controller code I don't want to use inside my gateway project. This controller class you can completely remove altogether. And but instead of this order summary controller, what we are going to do, we are going to make use of, right, what we are going to make use of GraphQL. So I will create one query where you can specify what data you need, another mutation where you can place one order. So this order summary endpoint is going to be replaced with the GraphQL. Additionally, I'm going to add one endpoint, right? Not endpoint, one mutation, which is responsible for creating a new order. Clear? What application we are going to develop? Clear or not? Is that clear, guys?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, what we need to do, we need to decide what package. So package is going to be hot chocolate. So a hot chocolate package, that what we need to install. As we are developing the application, right, using .NET 8, so you need to decide which package is compatible with that version. And in my case, package which is compatible is 15.1.2. So this package will provide the support, right, for developing, right, for implementing hot chocolate in your application. So let us first install the required packages. So where, in which project we need to implement this? Within the gateway project. So select that project. So within the e-commerce.api gateway project, please install these packages. So first package, this is going to be second package. Right? So don't install directly without specifying the version. Otherwise, what will happen? It will install the latest version, which might not be compatible with .NET 8. So whichever I have tested this one, and this is working perfectly, right, for .NET 8. So I'm installing this package. So now what I need to do, I need to first define the, right, guys, remember, whenever you are implementing some advanced concept, deciding the structure is very, very important. Structure in the sense, what are the file and folders I need to create. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one folder called,
Pranay,
yes.
how we can identify which version is compatible with which version of .NET?
Right? So whenever you are installing, it will already tell if that version is not compatible, it will give you compile time error.
Okay.
Right? For example, I'm using .NET 8. And if I try to install Entity Framework directly without specifying version, the latest one is going to be .NET Entity Framework 10. Right? 10 is not compatible with the .NET 8. So in that case, you need to explicitly specify whether .NET 8 or .NET 9 you want to use. And in this case, the latest one is not supported with the .NET 8, right? So that is the reason why
Okay.
I'm specifying this version. Right? And it's not it.
Okay.
So basically, what I'm going to do, please observe. So I'm going to write, okay, let me do this thing. So basically, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a GraphQL folder, and this folder is specifically for the GraphQL things. So within this folder, I'm going to create a folder called schema, where I need to define what are the mutation, what are the queries, what are the types, and all this information we need to define all the input types, output types, enum types, everything. Input, right? You can see I'm going to define the two folders. One is the model, another one is the types. So in model, what you can do, you can define within this model, you can create all of your details or C# classes. So this is going to be your details, right? Or details means you can consider this is going to contain your request details, right? Request details means you can use these models to capture the data from the client. And inside this type, whatever all of your requested details, for each detail, you need to specify the type. And here, the type what you are going to specify, this is for GraphQL. This request detail, it is for our internal use. We are going to use these details for doing our operation. And for each input detail, we need to define the corresponding input type. And this here it is going to be input types, right? So this is input types, for GraphQL. Input types for GraphQL. So whatever all of your input request detail, for each detail, I'm going to create an input type, right? If I'm having 5 request details or 5 models, then I have to create a 5 input types where I need to specify, what are the properties are there, which properties are what I can say required, which are optional, and this type is specifically going to deal with what detail. That's what we need to specify. And output models means what? This is going to be for your models means response details. If you have defined the details, you can use them directly. For example, in my case, you can say this details folder and this order summary detail are there. So if you want to use this details, that is fine. If you want to create separate detail, that is also fine, right? It is up to you. And types means what? Here you need to define the output types. Guys, remember, input types and output types both are different. You cannot use one input type for output, or you cannot use one output type for sending the data from GraphQL. You have to explicitly specify this is my input type, this is my output type, so that the GraphQL can handle these scenarios very greatly. Storage means what? Now here you need to define the read operations. So whatever the read operations means what method, you need to define one method right within the storage where you can perform the read operations. And the mutations means what? Here you need to define the write operations. Write operations means what? In my case, in the queries, I'm going to define one method which is going to fetch the data for orders detail space. And here it is going to define one method which is going to place one order. So while I'm doing this queries and mutations, they are only going to handle the schema, not the business logic. Means what? They will get the data and they are not going to responsible for doing any kind of operations. For doing the operations, what I need to do? I need to use the services. And the services we have already created, you can see, order summary aggregator service is there. And this is the method. And I need to call this method, right? So from this right? Queries, whenever I'm performing the read operation, I can call this method. And this method is going to return the data. But what data to be returned to the client, that what going to be defined or that is going to be managed by GraphQL. Clear? This folder structure is clear?
Yes.
Right. See, guys, what I'm going to do, whatever already existing details, right, those I'm going to use, and whatever the new requirement comes, right, as per our application, those we are going to create. So first of all, we need to create this folder structure. So let me start by creating a folder at the project root directory. So this structure is important. So by looking at the folder structure, you should understand, right, what I'm going to define inside that folder. Then I need to define one folder called a schema. So here I need to define, right, my application schema. So this is very, very important. Then I need to define one folder for input and output. So within this folder, I need to define another folder called input. I need to create another folder called output, right? Input and output. And in input and output folder, I need to define something called the models and the types. So in input, I'm going to create another folder called models. Input models I'm going to define here. Similarly, within the output folder, I'm going to create all my models where output models are going to be defined. Similarly, this input folder, I'm going to create one folder called types. So all the, right, whatever all models you define, for each model, I'm going to create the corresponding input type. And for output, for all output models, I also need to define one output types. Then I need to create another folder called queries where I need to define the right read operations. And then I need to define another folder where I need to define the write operation. Similarly, in case of a subscription, you need to create another folder where you can define the subscription. That is not part of our example. So here it is mutations. So this is what we define, and services folder we have already created. Clear, guys? This folder structure is clear? Clear or not?
Yes.
Right. Now you guys tell me. So as per our requirement, if you go to the order service, so in my case, in case of a order service, right, you can see this is my order API, this is my controller, order controller. So there is a method called create order. So for creating a order, whatever the data required, I need the create order data. I need the order item data and also address details. So these are the data what I need or not? Yes or no?
Yes.
So these details are already defined in my gateway or not? Yes or no? Obviously no. Is there any DTO we created or which is responsible for creating a new order? No, because we have only created one controller that is for returning the customer right order details. That is a order aggregator. So for now, what I need to do, first of all, I need to create my right input model. So you can give any name, order input model, DTO, whatever name you want. Guys, remember these are your plain right DTOs or model. So first of all, let me go ahead and create the models, right? So let me click open this one, close other tabs. So now tell me, if I want to create any input model or DTO, where I should create that one?
Input
Within which folder?
under model.
Under model. So let me go ahead and create one class file first. So this is going to be order item input model. So basically, if you look at this order item requested DTO. So whenever I'm going to place one order, the user can specify list of a products. Then what are the information I need to store? Product ID and the quantity. So basically in order item model, what I can store? I can store these two things. Clear? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Right? So if you look at this, these two things I'm specifying, product ID and order, sorry, quantity. So that's what I'm specifying, product ID and the quantity. Then I'm going to create another model that is right for the address. So if you look at this create order request, so while placing the order, the user can specify the already existing address ID, shipping address ID, or billing address ID, or he can also specify the complete address detail. So in this case, you can see this is going to be my complete address detail. So for this address detail, right, if I'm creating one object, right, I also need one model, and that model in this case is going to be address input model. Anytime you can give, right, whatever the DTO, if you want, you can also keep the same name. That is not a big deal. So here what I'm doing, I'm defining this model. Clear? You can see. So here you can see ID, user ID, address line 1, city, state, postal code, country is default billing. So the same thing I define here. ID, address line 1, address line 2, city, state, postal code, country is default billing and shipping. Clear? And the master data, that is order, create, request detail. So
Parni,
yes.
for the order item request DTO, you have copied only two fields and insert into that.
Sorry.
For the order item request DTO, you have copied these two fields,
So are
but you
you
have not
attending?
created.
Okay, you tell me, are you attending the session for the first time?
No, no, I am not attending. I have attended
You
the
just
live
tell me
sessions.
what else I need. So if you have you ever create any order in our microservices?
Yes.
So what data you are passing as part of order item while placing one
No,
order?
no. My question is that two fields you have copied and put it in our order response. The You have copied in the newly created DTO,
Yes.
but
Yes.
you have not created the class files as you have created for the address DTO.
So what you are talking, even I'm not understanding. Does anyone understand what he is trying to ask?
So he's
You tell
asking the order item type model doesn't have address, then why are we creating address? I think that's what he's asking.
No, no, no. My question is, we have created one new class for the address DTO, but we have not created the order item request like
what
this.
is this class? See, first of all, you just tell me, right, for placing one order, right, in my right order microservice, how many class I need? I need one class which is going to contain the user ID, shipping address ID, billing address ID. I also need this complex class. I also need this
Yes.
complex class. And total, how many class I need for placing one order?
One, two, three
Yeah,
classes.
because you didn't create this one, so that's why maybe he's getting confused.
Sorry,
Maybe if you create all the model, he will understand. It would be better if you create a. We can see that.
all the models means what?
He's
Like
expecting to create order request D2 in the model. I think that's what I understand.
So what order request model? See, are you getting confused between the different naming conventions?
no, no. Like the order item request DTO, we have these two like the fields that we have copied, but we have not created the new model for that DTO order item request DTO.
What you are talking? Are you understanding? So what I'm not creating, what I'm creating, you tell me. What I'm not creating.
Okay,
No,
okay, okay, okay. I understood. Sorry for that.
no. See, so don't say sorry, right, brother? You are here to learn, and I'm here to clarify all your queries. So what is right? What I'm not creating and what I'm creating, you tell me. So till
Uh,
now,
Okay, can I
this
answer?
order,
Can I
see
answer
this
his question?
the request. Let me create this class file, then you will understand, right? So basically what I'm doing here, creating three class file. Okay. Now, so now in my input model, how many class files are there? One class file for holding the address information, another class file for holding the item details, another class file which is going to store the user ID and shipping address and all these things. The three class file I created and this three class file also I have in my order services, right? If you go to this one, right, and if you go to order, so here you can see order item request editor is one class file, order, right, and then you can see order create order request D2 is another class file, and this address D2 is also another class file. So these three things I have created. Clear?
Yes, yes.
Where is the confusion? So these three class files are there in the order service, which is responsible for creating one order. And similarly, I created three class file here, which is also going to take the data from the client. Because in this case, we are creating one BFF, backend for the front end. Earlier case, our API gateway simply transfer the request to the corresponding microservices. But now we are going to handle that part using GraphQL. So to understand GraphQL, that GraphQL should know what are the input model, what are the output model. So similarly, I created these three models. So these three model, one model holding address information, another model holding the input data, another model, right, which is going to store the complete information. So this place order, it is going to contain address, the shipping address, the billing address, it is going to contain the list of order item input model. Clear?
Yes.
It's so now is that clear or not? Or still you have some
Clear,
doubt,
clear. No, no, clear for me.
right? So we have created three models now. So as per our requirement, right, what I mentioned, now for each model, this model, whatever, this model or DTO, whatever we created, this is for our internal use. Means what? Whatever the logic we are going to write, whatever the data we are going to capture. So for that purpose, we are going to use this model. Or right, but the GraphQL doesn't have any idea about our model. So this is one model used for the input. This is another model used for the input. This is another model used for taking the input information. So which properties are mandatory, which are optional. So this information GraphQL doesn't know. So what I need to do for each of this input model, I need to define the corresponding type. And within type, I need to specify that information that this type is representing the address input model. That type is representing the order item input model. So all this information we need to tell to the GraphQL. And for that purpose, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create some type. So first of all, I'm going to create one type for the order item input model, right? And guys, I'm going to follow some naming convention. So here you can see model. They are created with the model keyword, address input model, order item input model, and the type means I'm going to create an address input type, order item input type like this. So let me start with you one by one. I'm creating one type, order item input type. So what exactly this? This is going to represent the order item input model, and this is the type, or you can say this is the type, right? This is the type for the right input model, right? So okay, let me give this name. Naming convention is important. Address input model. So which one? Order item.
What what is types does? It seems to be you are inheriting from order input model.
I'm going to explain. That is what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to explain. Right. So whenever you are using GraphQL, you need to tell GraphQL, hey, Mr. GraphQL, this order input model, whatever is there, please consider this as a input object. Please consider this as a output object. That's what we need to tell. So in this case, if you are creating a type inheriting from an input object type, then this input object type T is going to be your input model. So basically, this order input type representing an input object of which type? Order item input model. So within this class, whatever the properties and field you defined within this type, those type you can access within the configure method. So how you can do, what are the things we need to do? Let us try to observe. So in this case, this order item input model, how many properties it hold? Two properties. One is the product, another one is a quantity. Product is of which type? GUID. Quantity is of which type? INT. And in this case, both are optional or both are mandatory fields? Guys, tell me. So mandatory field. So this information we need to tell to the GraphQL. So how we can do this? Now, as whenever we are overriding, whenever we are inheriting from this input object type, it provides this configure virtual method which you can override. And to this virtual method, you need to create one descriptor. This descriptor is nothing but the object, right? What you are specifying here. That means this using this descriptor, right? We can say what should be the name of this input type in the GraphQL, what are the properties are there, what type of a properties are there, whether they are optional or mandatory. So in this case, we are specifying order input. So you can consider the earliest name is going to be order input. So, right, you can use this type using order input. So how to use this input, right? For time being, just ignore that part. I'm going to explain, right, how you can access. But just remember, we are telling that type, right, that the input type name is going to be this one. So in the GraphQL, you will not see order item input type. You will not see order item input model. What you will see for this type? That is going to be order input type. Then in this case, this is what going to be used in the GraphQL query, right? That is going to be used by the client. So how to use? At that time, I will tell you. This product ID, right? It is going to be a nullable type or see. If you are not specifying non-null type, then by default it is going to be right nullable type. If you want to make this property is a non-nullable, then you have to specify the type. And whenever you are specifying the type, if you specify non-null type means it is a right mandatory field. So basically, what exactly it means? It means see, in our application we understand GUID, but the GraphQL he doesn't have any idea what is GUID. So in GraphQL we need to specify the corresponding type. So for our application, it is GUID. For GraphQL, GUID will be considered as UUID type. So UUID type means what? It is similar to GUID. The product name is going to be product ID. That for this input type, right, order item input, it will create one property that is product ID. That product ID type is going to be UUID type so that you can specify one GUID value and it is going to be a non-nullable property. Clear?
Is it mandatory to change the descriptor dot name? Can't we keep it as order item?
Right? Yeah, you can give any name. But you have to give a name. Whatever name you want, you can give, but you have to give a name.
Or suppose we are not giving, so it can't take directly with our
See, in that case,
configure method.
see, you have to give a name, and it is recommended. Why? Because if you are not giving name, then he will use right some default naming convention. That what he will be. I'm going to also discuss, right, how that naming convention is going to be mapped, right, whatever our type we define, and how GraphQL will consist. That's what I'm also going to discuss. But it is recommended to give a name. If you don't give, that is fine, but recommended. Clear?
Yes.
And the same thing I'm doing here for the quantity. And here I'm specifying the type is going to be integer, non-null type, and the type is going to be integer. Clear? Any question,
Yeah.
guys, here? So you have to create a type, class, inherited from the input object type. You have to inherit from the input object type if this is going to be an input type. And yes, this is going to be input type, and we will use this type for right what? For creating a new order. And within the configure method, you need to specify the name, whatever the fields are available, what is that field type, whether they are nullable or non-nullable type. Next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create
Sir,
guys who is on mute,
I have-
please mute.
Sorry, actually, one query I have. So like other validations are there, like range or something. So
That
we
is
have to
that
specify
is
for
going to
all.
see, that is going to be handled by the respective API. So we are not doing here the business logic. You have to remember, business logic is going to be handled by the respective services. Clear? Because once I right, once I call this controller, order service controller, is that validation going to be handled by the controller? Is this right order controller going to handle all this thing, validation and all this thing? You have to remember, GraphQL we are implementing here for managing the data, not the logic. Yes, some basic validation it can handle. What basic validation? Whether this field is mandatory or not, whether the client provided a value or not, whether that value is a valid value or not, that is going to be handled and that is going to be checked by the respective microservices. You have to remember, here we are not going to write any logic. Here it is only going to manage the data flow. How the data is going to be flow, what data to be written, that what it is going to manage. Clear?
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
Sir, I have one
So
question here.
I have one doubt.
Yes.
You have just copied that DTO. Inside the DTO, we are still using regular expressions. Can you just go on this one? Can
That
you
I
just
just
open this
copied.
DTO?
See, in this case, this is not mandatory. If you want, you can remove this thing. That is absolutely fine. I just copy the
Ah,
code, right?
okay.
But not mandatory.
Okay. Thank you.
So that one. Otherwise, what you can do, for example, if you are using Fluent validation and all these things, right? Again, checking the validation at two different places doesn't recommended. That is anyhow going to be handled by the right. What I can say, uh, services, and that is the recommended approach. So here it is not mandatory. Here. So next, what I'm
Sir,
going
I
to
have
do,
one question.
yes.
So you have created descriptor.name with some unique name, right? So
Yes.
whenever client is calling with that name, these two fields will be returned. Can we create one more
You have to
descriptor
remember.
with the same
So
class?
see, you have to remember this model. What we are creating, is this for return or is this for taking data from the client? You have to understand input model. What is the use of input details? I mean request details. What is the use of output detail? Input model means what? It is responsible for taking the data from the client. When I'm going to define the output model, that will be used for returning the data to the client. And this model, they have to provide these two value as these two are mandatory. Clear?
Okay. Yeah, clear.
Next, I'm going to create my address input type. So
Pranay, just I need to ask, only we will check this more in most cases we will only check this non-null type and the data type only in the GraphQL
see,
in
if
most
you
of the
want to
scenarios.
see, not mandatory. If you want to implement some kind of a validation, that's what you need to do. But guys, remember there is no controller, no MVC pipeline. So even though if you apply some kind of a data annotation, they will never come into the picture, right? So in that case, what you can do is you can go with some red fluent validation. Manually, you can call the validate method and you can manually validate the data right within the queries and mutations where you define. But that auto validation is not coming into the picture because this is not right as part of our controller model binding and all these things. This is completely a different layer which is sitting on top of our right web API project. Clear? So you know when this validation coming into the picture, so model state is valid, right? We are using API controller, which is responsible for checking right whatever the validations are there, whether the data is satisfied as per the validation rules, and these things will never come into the picture in case of a GraphQL. So those validation will never come into the picture. If you want to do the validation, manually you can do it. Clear?
Okay.
Right. So next is going to be address input type. So this is very similar. Right, here you need to define the data, right? For example, you can see I'm specifying this is for the address input model, and in address input model, so these are the properties, and for each property this is my name, UID, ID is going to be UUID, address line you can see, right? And in this case, am I specified non-nullable type?
No.
No. That means what? Now in the address input model, this ID is mandatory or optional?
Optional.
Optional. So whenever optional, no need to specify. If you not specify, this is optional. If you specify, this is mandatory. And the same thing I have done here. Clear?
Yes.
Right? So all these things we have specified. The same thing, right? For example, address line 2. So here address line 1 non-nullable type. Address line 2 only I'm specifying the data type as a string type. So in that case, what will happen? Now in this case, this field is optional. Optional means if client wants to pass the data, he can pass. Otherwise, he can write. He can remove that type altogether right from the query. Then another class file I need to create for the order, place order input type. So we have another type, place order input type. So for that type, again, I need to create another class file. So let me create it that one. So here, right, whatever the data required by the type, what we need to specify. So very similar to your this one. So whatever the right, whatever the place order input type we specified here, that what we need to specify here also, right? So again, you can see this is my descriptor name I specified, user type, and here one more thing you need to remember in this case, this items is a collection. So you can see this items it's a collection. So whenever you are getting a collection type, so you have to specify two things. So this item itself cannot be null. So if you go to this place order, so is this item is going to be nullable or non-nullable type? It is not null. So that's what I'm specifying non-nullable list type. Again, in each item, right, you can go ahead and check there, right, for each item, you can say order input model. So this input model also cannot be null or empty. So that's what I'm specifying. So neither this one is going to be null or empty, as well as each item inside this right collection that cannot be also null or empty. That's what you need to specify. So basically, whenever you are dealing with the collection type, you have to specify this non-null type for to both. Both means for the items itself and for the order items, right? Whatever they are within this type, that for themselves. So then shipping address, and all these things I specified. Whatever. Yes.
In order item input type, if we have one field is nullable, so how we can define at this how we can
You can remove this one.
if one field is nullable only.
That is already defined there, na. So if that field is not null or empty, right? That's what I am already defined it here. Clear? So here you need to define the logic, na. If one field is null or empty, you can remove that field,
Okay.
right? And here you can see another important thing that what you need to remember. So in this case, you can see that the payment method, right? So place order input, that the payment method. What is this payment method? It is a enum. And this enum having this fixed length of values, right? So that what also you need to specify. So if it is a enum type, you also have to specify, yes, this is a enum type, and what is the type, that what you need to specify. Clear?
Yes.
Right? So this is how you need to specify the type for each model. Now what I need to do, I need to define my output model. So basically this user error, I'm going to create one output model. So go to this folder. So all the error related information when placing one order, whether the data is valid or not. If that is returning from the services, that is fine. But sometimes if there is some issue, right, within the data, I can also return directly, right, from my mutation queries, whatever I'm going to write. So that error information I want to represent in a what I can say proper format. So I'm creating this class file which is going to store the code. So whatever the validation error, right, not found, payment failed, out of stock, right, whatever that error code and message, right. So that is a common pattern for returning the error information. I have created this model. If you don't want to use this one, that is also fine. So then write a place order payload. So this place order payload model means what? Now once the order is placed, right? Once the order is placed, what data you want to return? Once the order is placed, what data you want to return? So for that purpose, I'm going to create this class file. Right? You can see it is going to return, right? Sorry, not this user error. This is the wrong code, wrong class. Place order payload type model.
Sir, for this user error, there we have a property like we have set that error code. It can be constant, right? Uh, Constant variable, we can assign that fixed value
No, see,
instead of
this is
property.
both are property means what? What property you are talking?
Means here the you have set the value validation error invalid
This is
request.
the default value. So this is the default value. If I'm creating an instance of this class, default value is going to be this one: validation error, invalid request. Apart from this, right, whatever validation error you want to show, you can show whether it is not found
Okay, okay,
product.
it will be changed. Okay, I thought.
This is the default value, and
So,
accordingly, right, as per the error type, you can specify the exact code and error, right? So,
okay,
and as part of the response, what I'm going to return, I'm going to return the list of error, right? Whatever the errors, if any, available. Otherwise, I'm going to return this order. So, if you look at this order response DTO, which we have defined in my DTO class, application order service application. So, these are the data that what I'm going to return. Now, what you can do now, when the user, when the customer call my service, the customer can decide right out of all these properties, what properties he want in the response. So for response, he can manage right what he want as part of the response. For input model, that is definitely they have to pass because without the input data, my application will not work. Clear? Clear or not?
Yes.
So now this is the order response detail. See, as this detail is already, I mean, this class file is already defined. I can use this class file directly. Otherwise, you can create another model right within this model folder and you can use. So this is already there. So why should I create again? Right. So I can use. So now once this is done, next what I can do is I can create my output type. Guys, remember? So most of the right details, right, whatever we created here, right, for returning the order summary information, I'm going to use all these details, and uh, and for all these details, including this user error, place order, payload type, and this order response detail, all the types I need to define. So whatever the types, right, that what I need to define within the types folder, which are responsible for right returning the data. So now, right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one type. What is that type? Type for user error. Right, right. See, here we created this is for our internal. So, but we also need to tell that this is going to be one output type containing two properties, code and a message. So for that purpose, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create this class file. Again, let's remember both input type and output type are different. Input type means what? You can see they are created using right by created using this input type object, input object type. And if you are creating this using object type, right, means what? It is a output. If you are creating by inheriting from the input object type, that is input type. If the input word is not there, only object type means what? It is a output type. So what is the difference between input and output? Input type are for getting the data, output type for returning the data. And whatever type we specify, the client can decide, right, what are the fields they want, what are the type they want. That one client can manage, right? So this is one output type. And only changes is this one. Right? Only changes is this object type, input object type, and here it is going to be object type. So you can say this is input object type and this is object type. And one more changes you can see the descriptor what we created here, that is I input object type description. And here only I object type descriptor. That input keyword is not there. If input keyword is not there, means it is used for defining the output properties. Clear? Clear or
Is
not?
yeah, the type, both type input and output is used only to do Fluent validations.
No, this is not fluent validation. This is used for informing the GraphQL what are the types available, right? And what are the, see, if you are not doing this thing, then how does the GraphQL will know, right? That this is one payload, this payload having this properties, right? How the GraphQL will know? So these types, what we are defining, this is not for fluent validation. I'm not doing any kind of a validation here. We are telling to the right GraphQL, these are the properties, these are the type, and in each type, these are the properties. This properties name is this one, this properties data type is this one, this is a mandatory property or this is a optional property. That's what we are specifying. Clear?
Yeah, I understand that we need to inherit and doing this uh, because GraphQL can understand only if we do this kind of way. That is the understanding I have. So though
Yes.
we have declared a user error class, but we have to define user error type with inheriting this. Am I right?
Yes.
That's a
Yes, so
need.
every request and response object, whatever you are using which you are going to get the data and send the data, for each type, you need to define a type. If that object, right, if that DTO or model you are using for getting the data, you need to create the corresponding input type. If using that model, you are returning the data, you have to create one output type.
Okay, thank you.
Right? And this type what we are creating, it is for GraphQL, not for our business logic. We are not going to use this user type or whatever, right? Type we address input type anywhere in our application code. We are creating this to tell the GraphQL what are the types available, and for each type what are the fields available, whether they are optional or mandatory. That's it. Right? Clear? Clear or not? For example, you
Yes,
can consider it, you are going to you are having 5 tables, right? You are having 5 tables, so you can create a view. Inside that view you can specify all the columns from all the tables. Now you provide that view to the right customer. Then the customer can decide, right, what columns, right? For example, out of 20 column, if customer write only 5 columns and access the data from the view, then what will happen? Internally, it is going to access the data from the database. But what we are going to expose, only those things are available. The client can only select from those. Are you getting my point?
the last statement, sir. Whatever exposing here, that was what available say input as output. That's what you're saying.
So
Though you
outputs, you have to remember 2 things. Output, he cannot compromise. Sorry, input he cannot compromise. Output means I'm specifying these are all these fields, right? And out of this field, whatever the data you need, you can specify. So select, if I specify star from view name, it will return me all the columns. If I specify select column 1, column 2, column 3, it will only return these 3 columns data. The flexibility we are providing to the right client. And how we can provide? So we need to create some kind of a GraphQL schema. So in SQL, if you are working with right SQL Server database, then you have to use SQL Server related syntax. You cannot write Oracle syntax in SQL Server database and it will work, right? So in this case, so we need to tell to the GraphQL. GraphQL, it's a query language itself. Query language means what? Now in the GraphQL, we can write queries. And that queries is going to be handled by GraphQL. And to understand GraphQL, what are the properties are available, what are the types are available, we need to tell the GraphQL, yes, these are the properties available, these are the input properties, these are the output properties. Those information we are telling to the GraphQL. Clear? So you can consider this input type and output type what we are creating. These are one table. Some table is used for getting the data. Some type is used for returning the data. But which table is used for creating a order? Which table is used for returning the order, right? So that logic we have not yet defined. So we are only defining the type. So this is input type, this is output type. Input type means it is useful for getting the data. Output type means for returning the data. Which type, where to use, that what we have not yet discussed. That what's going to be part of your queries and schema. Clear?
yes, sir.
Clear, guys? So next I'm going to create order rate item output type. So basically you can see I'm going to create some type. So you can see payment info, order summary response info, order product info, customer info, all this type, right? I'm going to create along with this place order type, uh, right? And in place order, right, you can see I'm creating this order response DTO. And in order response DTO, you can see I'm using this order item response DTO. So for all these, right, I'm going to create the corresponding type. So let me start with this one, order item output type. See, any name you can give. Let me start with this order item. Right. So if you go to this place order payload, and if you go to this order response, so this is order item response DTO. So this is the DTO. What are the properties available here? Order item ID, product name, item status ID, right? Price at purchase, discount price, quantity, total price, all these are available. So by taking all these things, right, I have defined this type. So name, you can give any name, order item ID, product name. If it is a mandatory field, you can specify a nullable. If it is non-mandatory, you can remove that one. So all these things I have to specify for each properties. What is the corresponding type? And this type, guys, remember, this is the type that what we specified as for right. What I can say, hot chocolate. That what we are using. Clear? This type is clear. Clear or not?
Yes.
Right. Similarly, I need to create the remaining types. So I'm not going to give you more time right by declaring this type. So you have to understand this thing. Right, another is for right, so you have to remember whatever all types are there, whether they are being used for the right as part of the place order or as part of the order summary, for each right response DTO or right, you need to create a type, output type. Similarly, this is for right order response DTO. So you can see this is my order response DTO, which is going to contain all these properties. So by taking all these properties, I'm creating this type. So again, it is inherited from object type, that I object type descriptor, and here I have also specified all this type. So here order status, it's a enum, payment method, it's a enum, right? All these properties I have specified. Clear? Payment URL, you can see it is a nullable type. So that is the reason why I have not specified the nullable type. Similarly, place order payload type. So here we can see I have created one, and this is going to contain two properties. So first I have created, see, the flow you can understand. So this is my output type. So this output type uses order response DTO. For order response DTO, I have created this one. Right? You can see it is representing the order response DTO. Right? And in order response DTO, you can see I'm internally using one type that is going to be order item response DTO. For that purpose, I have created this type. Here you can see I'm specifying order item response DTO. Now for this place order payload, I have to create that type. So let me go ahead. See, you have to remember the number of rate model or entities means which you are using for output. That many number of output types you need to define. So place order, it contains two properties, this and this. So here I'm also creating two properties. One is order output type and another one is error types. So next what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one output type for order info. So you can see for order summary, I'm going to use these five DTOs. So for all these five DTOs, I need to create five types. So order info. So as part of order info, what data you are going to return. So this is going to be order info type. So inherited from an object type, name you can give, whatever the properties are there, order number, order date status, all these things you can define. Similarly, customer info type, you need to define another output type for the customer response DTO. So this is my customer info DTO. Here you can see I have created this type. For this type, this is the output type. And here you can specify whatever the properties are there. Similarly, order product info output type. going guys a little bit fast because this thing we have already discussed. So I don't want to spend too much time here. So this is one another output type which is for the order product info type. So next payment info type. So let me go ahead and create this one. Again another type. Payment info type. Next, I'm going to create order summary output type. This is my main entity, which is I'm going to return as part of the response when the user trying to access the get summary GraphQL. Clear, guys? So all the input types and output types is clear. Clear?
Parne, we have not created the models for the output. Like we have created the types
Hey,
for each.
this is already there existed, na? So in
Okay.
my API gateway, we have already created one controller. So this controller is already having these DTOs, right? And these DTOs I'm using here. See, if this type we are not available, you have to create. Already I am created this DTOs, right, in my previous sessions. So why should I create this
Okay.
again, right? So here you can see whatever the type I mention here, customer. So
Okay.
this DTO is
Okay.
not available, it will throw error. This is already created in my previous sessions,
Okay.
right? This customer info,
Yeah.
order info, already available, so I'm reusing them. If not available, you have to create the model and you have to specify the type. So what I mentioned, for every input request object and response object, the corresponding mapping input type and object type you have to define. Otherwise, it will not work. Clear?
And one more question. If they are not available, so we have to create in the output model folder.
See, it is if it is related to output, you have to create in output models folder. If it is related to input model, you have to create here.
Okay.
Again,
Okay.
see, you can create these models anywhere. Following a proper folder structure is recommended. Clear?
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Now we need to create the services, right? Guys, remember, we have already have the service, right? Which service? You can say order summary aggregator service is there, which is responsible for reading the order details. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one service, right, which is responsible for placing a order by calling the respective order service create order endpoint, right? So in this case, you can say I'm creating this one create order, which will receive this create order request DTO. Why I'm saying, because if you go to the controller, order controller, this order controller having this create order request DTO, and that detail I anyhow need to pass, otherwise it will not work. Passing the authorization header, and I'm also taking the cancellation token in case you want to cancel the request, right? Then what I need to do, I need to provide the implementation. Implementation means what? Now from the console service discovery, please get the endpoint URL and invoke that endpoint. That what you need to do. So create one class file. And this is very simple. All the hard work we have already done. So it's simple to invoke the endpoint microservices method. So see what I'm doing here, right? So I'm using HTTP client factory. I'm using the resolver. Resolver will get me the service instance where the order service is running using load balancing. It will give me one healthy endpoint instance. And this is my endpoint that what I need to invoke for placing the order. If authorization header is there, that what we need to add, and we need to put this method. Means it will invoke the microservices. Once I invoke the microservices, I will get the response. I'm converting that response into my DTO, right? And if I'm getting the response status code as unauthorized, I need to return this message. If it is not successful, I need to return this error message. If there is some error, I want to return the error response message. So basically here you can say I'm returning an API response update. That is what going to be returned to the client. So in this case, I'm not implementing any business logic. I'm simply creating my client instance, and accessing that instance, right? What is the service name? Order service. So order service, right? Instance I'm getting from the console service discovery. We have already discussed, guys, the console service discovery, how that service instance is going to be resolved. All these things we have already discussed. So whatever the service, healthy service instance that it will return, so we are just invoking that create order endpoint. That's it. Clear? Clear or not? And in case of right order summary, we have already created this order summary service. You can say it is taking the order ID and it is fetching the order details from the order microservice. Then right using parallel programming, it is also invoking the respective, right, what I can say, uh, methods, right? I mean, all these three methods are going to be executed parallelly. And once all the method execution are completed, we are proceeding further. If we are getting all the customer product and payments data, then that each partial is going to be, I mean, it is a complete request. If I'm getting some error, right, if customer data is not available or payment information is not available, then we are setting that it's a partial. Partial means some of the services might be down. So this is also we have implemented. Next, what we can do is now we need to define our queries and mutation. So basically what I need to do, I need to create two class file. One class file is going to define all the mutations and another class file is going to define all the queries. And for queries, I'm going to create the queries inside the queries folder, gateway query.cs. And within this queries folder, what I need to do, I need to define a function, right? Guys, remember all the public functions, whatever you are going to define, they are going to be available by the clients to be consumed. So in this case, you can see I defined one method. And if this method is public, means what? Client can consume this method. Client means what? The whether it is a mobile client or whatever, they can query this method. So in this case, this is the method name get order summary async. This order ID, this is going to my input parameter. And this special parameter, guys, remember whatever the special parameter you created using the service means what? Now it is asking the framework, hey, Mr. Framework, can you please provide me the service instance of I order service? Can you provide me the service instance of I logger? See, there are two ways. Either you can inject the right services through constructor. Otherwise, you can inject the services through the method. So this is method dependency injection. Another approach is their constructor dependency injection. But in this case, right, I'm working with this method dependency injection. So it will inject this aggregator and the logger instance, right? Now, so what I need to do, now I'm getting the order ID and I'm invoking this method and this method will return me the result. And that result I'm going to return. Very simple, very straightforward. So again,
Pranay,
yes.
like this in the service we have used. So in the earlier projects, we have like the dependency injection in our like in the constructor. So we can use that. We can use the service there so that we will not
You just tell
configuring
me, you
the
just tell
program.
me, you just tell me how I can invoke this method. Without the aggregator instance, can I invoke this method?
No, no.
From where I will get this instance? From dependency
Like as
injection.
you said, like as you
The
said,
depend-
either we have to get it from the dependency injection or we can use the service.
Hey, do you know what are the different ways to inject the dependency object?
Either it is from the constructor or
Um,
the methods we
Yeah, so
can.
both are going to do the same thing. So constructor dependency injection is useful whenever all the method are going to use the dependency object. If only that object is going to be used in one or two methods, it doesn't recommend it to inject the object through constructor. What is the recommended approach? Inject them through the method only. Clear? And that approach, that method dependency injection, I'm following here. Clear?
Okay. So
Just
in that case, we don't need to register this in the program.cs. That's why we have used the dot
no.
serv
See, see,
that
see,
service.
see. You just tell me. If I'm not injecting, then who will create an instance of this class?
uh, when we will register in the program.cs, at that time in the dependency injection will create.
So, what I understand, right? You are not understanding how the dependency injection is working. Without registering into the dependency injection container, then how the framework will provide me an instance of this class? Does the
Okay,
framework
so
have any idea, right? What is this order summary aggregator without registering them into the dependency injection container?
so are you going to register this class in the
Already
program.cs?
registered, man. Already registered.
Okay, okay.
Right? So I think you are attending for the first time. Am I right?
No, no, I have attended.
So if you have already attended, you should not ask this question. If you go to the program.cs class file, then you should see that order aggregator. What is this?
Okay. But I have never seen you have used as in the curly braces, you have used the service keyword.
You see, because the scenario never comes. But what I assume means if you don't know this approach is also available. What it means? It means you can also right access the injection object right using scope factory. So three different approaches there. Constructor injection, method injection. Manually, you can request the right framework to provide the inject object. All these options are available. Clear?
Okay, okay,
Right? So basically, right. Okay. Let me go ahead and show you something. Not here. Not here, but that is also possible, right? Manually, you can also request for the dependency object. They will also provide. But here, this is another approach, right? That method dependency. If you know, right, basic concept, right? A different way to inject. One is constructor dependency injection, method dependency injection, property dependency injection in normal way, right? And this is one
yeah,
of the approach. Right? So this is nothing but your method dependency injection. Within the method, you have to create the variable using the service, decorating that right variable using the service decorator, right? So once you decorate with
okay,
service, means it will request the framework, hey, Mr. Framework, can you please provide me an instance of this class? And whatever
okay,
the registered object, that is what it is going to supply. And using that object,
Yeah,
we are simply calling that service method. Clear?
yeah. I
yes,
have one
yes.
question. That service attributes within square bracket. Yeah, I know from service if we want to instantiate, but this is first time I'm seeing the service in square bracket. Is it
I
same as
don't know
from
what
service?
about see that from service even right. See, I think you are working with that old MVC framework.
Come again?
You are working with the old MVC and Web API framework.
Okay, okay. So
Here,
service is a latest.
this is
Okay.
.NET Core, right? You can use the service, which will right explicitly tell the framework to right get an instance of this class. Clear? This
Uh,
class file is clear. So what exactly this gateway core is going to do? It is going to define one method, which is going to return the order detail summary. Now, so for example, right tomorrow you want another method, get the right payment information. You can define another method here. So that I'm not going
Okay,
to define that method here. That is a rate requirement. Suppose I'm returning the order summary. Now you are having a different requirement. That product detailed information you want to retrieve. Product detailed in mean product image URL, that feedback, right? All the information you need to retrieve. Then in that case, what you need to do, then for that particular scenario, whatever the input object, whatever the output object, right? For that input request DTO, response DTO, you need to define the types. Again, you need to create another public method here, right? Whatever the input data and whatever the data you want to return, that's what you need to define. So basically, this gateway query is the place where you can define multiple public method, and whatever public method you define here, they are available to be consumed by the client. Clear?
Pranay, if we will define all those methods in a single class, so it will not be like a messy, like
Here, what we are doing here, we are only defining the signature. See, in this case, do we have any business logic?
No, no, there is not a business logic, but still,
Very
if we will
simple.
define for the product, for the order, and for the payment, so will it not be like a messy?
No, it will not like a messy. If you don't like, you can create multiple class. That is also fine.
Okay, okay.
That is also fine.
Sir,
So
may know
I'm going to
the
say that. Yes.
service attributes. Can you tell me which classes like it is using the square bracket service?
It is a built-in class provided by Entity Framework. Sorry, a rate service attribute which is provided by Hot Chocolate.
Oh, okay. It is not part of okay. So it is specific to GraphQL, not
Yes, yes.
specific
It
to.
is specific to writing Hot Chocolate. Hot Chocolate means GraphQL.
So is it can be used for like normal web API or only for GraphQL?
In normal web API, how it is available? So that is different altogether.
Okay, this is with respect to GraphQL, right? Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yes. Next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to define my gateway mutations. So within the mutations folder, let me go to the mutations folder. Where is that folder? This one. So create a class file. So
I'm
in this
having
class
one
file,
question.
yes,
Like right
please.
now you have done dependency injection through method you have showed us. In square bracket you have used this service. So that service is a part of hot chocolate or it is like if in normal API also if I want to do method injection,
Normal API, how it is
dependency
available?
injection through
So
method.
this is not available in normal API. Normal API, you have to use from service.
Okay, like you said, no, we three ways we can do the
That
injections
is
through
one of the way.
constructor, through method.
Basically what we need an approach where we need to tell the framework, hey, Mr. Framework, can you please provide an instance of this class? You are asking whether you are
Correct.
asking directly within the method code, whether you are asking through the constructor, whether you are asking via the method parameter. It is up to you only.
Yeah,
Clear?
suppose if I'm willing to go with method approach, so so this square service it won't be part of it, right? Like as you have declared here in line number.
You can go directly, na? So you know how to call the method. I mean, you know how to access. I mean, how you can request the server I mean, dependency injection container. So ask manually to get the service instance. Do you know that logic?
Mm, no, I will only
Just try.
construction. Oh, okay,
Const- See,
okay,
construction is a option available because that is very easy. But apart from that,
yes,
what is the problem? The problem is you are using through the constructor. Why? Because you don't know the other
mm,
approaches. But if a constructor
correct.
is the best approach, then why they have provided other approaches?
Mm,
So everyone is
okay,
designed right for some specific scenarios. What is that scenarios? That what you need to understand right with the dependency injection. Okay.
okay,
So
thank you.
what I'm going to do, this is my mutation. So all the gateway, I mean, all the post request you can consider, which is specifically for post, put, and delete. Those method you can define within this class file. So one method I defined, this is going to be my input object. So these are some special parameter. So this order API context is required, for calling the order service. I'm sorry, not for calling the order. Yes, for calling the order HTTP service. This is for accessing the authentication token. And this is whether the request has been cancelled. So first of all, if I'm going to I'm going to invoke the order API create order method. I need an instance of a create order request DTO. But here I'm getting an object of this model, right? Place order input model. That what we created here. Place order input model. So that model I need to convert, right? So whatever the data is required by this, right? Even if you want, you can directly use this one, right? For example, instead of using this what is that method? What you are using place order input model, place order So instead of this one, right, you can also directly specify that object here. But again, you have to do the changes. Changes means what? Now, whatever the order request of DTO, order item request DTO, that what you need to specify here. Right? That's fine, right? Anything is fine. So you have to create an instance of the request DTO. You need to specify whatever the properties you are getting from the right. I mean, whatever the properties you are getting from the request object. Then you need to access the authorization header, set the then call this order API client, ready create order async method. And this method we have already defined within the service class. So this order API client service class we have already defined, and it will whatever the data it will return, that data we are going to return. Again, while we are returning, we are checking is there any error available or not, because we have created this custom error. If you are creating this is fine. If you are not creating, directly whatever the response you got from the API, that response you can also directly return. In that case, this user error will never come into the picture. But and if you want to provide some specific error information, you can handle. Otherwise, whatever the response you are getting, right, order response DTO, that what you can return. But you cannot return that response directly. You have to return the response using your payload, whatever you defined here for the response order payload response DTO. So this is my mutation. So once this is done, so we have created two class file. One class file going to define the read operation, and this mutation class file is going to define all the writing operation. Now, what is important? The important is the right schema registration. Schema registration means what? Now, whatever the input type, whatever the output type we defined, whatever the gateway query, right? We defined read operation, write operation. All these things we need to register into the GraphQL server. So for this purpose, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one class file. So this is the important class file, and this class file you can consider the heart. Heart means everything we need to tell right to the GraphQL, whatever the input type, whatever the output type is available. First of all, I need to register the GraphSQL server. So this is going to enable GraphQL endpoint in your application. This GraphQL server can also handle authentication and authorization. You can see this endpoint is also decorated with authorized attribute. So for that purpose, you need to enable authentication. Here I decorated this add query type. You can see here you can also specify multiple queries, right? If you are creating right multiple query class, multiple mutation class, all this you can specify here. All the query classes what you created, all the mutation classes what you created. Then you need to define all your input model as well as all your output model. So how? By using add type. So this is my input type, this is my output type. Guys, remember here what you need to specify? You need to specify only your type, not your model. So whatever the types you specify, three types, whatever the types you specify, those types you need to specify. And this type internally, right, know what is the corresponding model. And again, whatever the right payment method in right? For example, this is optional, right? But if you specify, then what this payment method containing, right, contains, that information is also going to be exposed to the client, so that the client can know, yes, payment method, okay, these are the fixed values, okay, order status, these are the fixed values. So that information, if you want to return to the client, then what you need to do, you need to specify this right enums as well. So this registration part is clear. What are the things you need to register? Whatever the query you created, whatever the mutation class you created, whatever the input types you created, whatever the output type you created, and whatever all rate enum, at all these things you need to specify. Clear? Clear? And one more thing, guys, remember within this gateway query and gateway mutation, only those methods which are public, they are going to be exposed to the client. If you define some right private method, they are not available for the client to be consumed. So these are the things that what you need to define. And finally, guys, what I'm going to do, I'm going to expose a single GraphQL endpoint. And more importantly, whatever the existing, right, that service endpoint, I mean, this order service controller, and for this controller, we have created one branch. That what I'm going to remove altogether. I'm not going to use this right branch anymore. So this gateway branch, I'm not going to use anymore. So this get events is no longer required. Why? That's what I'm going to handle using my GraphQL. Clear? Clear or not?
I'm not sure,
Yeah.
sir. Since it is previous class, I'm not able to understand what it is. So before we have a branching policy, branching code.
Okay, let me right. If you don't attend the previous sessions, just forget about it. So this
Okay.
is not required at this point of time because we are not going to use this controller services, right? But yes, I'm using this one because I want to open the Swagger endpoint, right? So this is the add HTTP client I have registered because I want to use HTTP client factory. So this is for the service registration, right, to the console service discovery, and we are using here Oscillate API gateway. So we are reading the Oscillate JSON file, and this is I'm injecting my rate limiting services and the compression settings and the Serial logger, right? So we have already discussed this thing. Then this is my JWT authentication and authorization. Then this is my HTTP context accessor, so that right within the service, I can use the HTTP context access service so that I can access the authentication right bearer token. So these are the method which is required right for the GraphQL. One is order summary aggregator, which is going to be used by GraphQL for to fetch the order details. So the framework can provide the instance of this class. Also, I'm going to use this order API client for right invoking the client order service client for creating a new order. The framework is also going to inject the service. This is for using Redis cache, and this is my red gateway GraphQL. So this nothing but whatever the extension method we created here, this method we are calling, which is going to do the things. Do the things means it will register the GraphQL server and all the things which is required by GraphQL. Then I'm building my application. If the environment development environment is development, it is going to show the Swagger UI. Redirection is there, right, which will redirect HTTP to HTTPS protocol. Correlation ID we have created used for distributed tracing. Any whatever the request and response we are, whatever the request we are getting, whatever the response we are returning, that what we are going to log. This is for routing, right? And these are my authentication and authorization middleware components. And here, this is my GraphQL endpoint, right? So basically, what exactly it means? It means if the request is coming and if contains slash GraphQL, then I'm not going to do all these things. So this is a different concept altogether. So I'm going to write, I'm not going to use bearer authentication validation, rate limiting, Redis caching, all these things I'm not going to use if the request start with the GraphQL. If the request coming for health endpoint, right, it is means what? Now it is minimal API endpoint. Now it is going to return 200, right? So that that console service internally it is going to call this health check endpoint to see whether the service is fine or not. So this is map controller, which is going to map the request to controller, right? Yes, we are using this because this controller is still there. And this is my GraphQL endpoint. So basically, this is my GraphQL endpoint. So if the request is coming for GraphQL, that is going to be handled by GraphQL. So and here, what options we provided? The options we provided here enable get request false. So basically, all the request you have to pass using a post request only, right? And this is recommended. Why? Because everything, right, you need to pass in the request body, right? For the security purpose, you should disable that get request. Whether it is a get request or a post request, the client will pass using right a post parameter only. And this is for my right. If the request is not if the request is not start with the GraphQL, then please enable Oscillate. Clear? I mean that Oscillate will come into the picture, which will right take the responsibility for calling the appropriate downstream microservices. Clear, guys?
Sir, can you scroll up like in the above section where if it is not starting with GraphQL, you have disabled this gateway bearer reflecting all this.
Yes.
Could you explain?
Your voice is very low.
Yeah, I'm saying, yeah, like we are disabling this bearer validation rate limiting. Why,
Yes.
sir?
In this case, that JWT validation is going to be handled by the GraphQL itself, right? So why should I do that validation again here? And if this custom rate limiting and all this thing, right? If you want to use that, fine, right? But again, right, it is up to you only. But for me, right, I mean, this is the request which is going to handle by multiple requests. So we should not have any kind of a rate limitation, right, for that particular request. And whenever you are using GraphQL, caching is not going to be work altogether, right? Because in this case, there is no controller action method, nothing is going to be there. So it's a different story altogether.
So is there a
And
method used that is response catching, or it's just calling the?
sorry,
Is there any method implemented in this program.cs, or it's?
we have already implemented this thing, na?
Oh, okay.
Response caching middleware, see whatever, or this is already a completed application. Everything we have
Okay.
already.
Okay. Sorry,
So caching, rate limiting, error token validation, compression, aggregation, right? All these things we have already implemented. So what is the use of correlation ID, request response logging? Everything is implemented already. Again, it is up to you only whether you want to, right? I mean, whether you want to do the validation or not, you can handle that one also. Clear?
Oh, only not GraphQL you are calling this. Okay.
Right. So this is only graph.
Okay,
In
okay.
case of
So,
GraphQL, we are not doing this thing. If it is a
huh,
GraphQL, we are not going to do all this thing. Other, if it is not a GraphQL, then definitely they will come into the picture. I mean, they are going to be registered. In
okay,
case,
okay.
right, if it is GraphQL, we are not doing this thing. If it is right, other than GraphQL, it is going to register all these things. Clear?
So rate limiting, who will take for GraphQL?
In GraphQL, we are not right bothering about the rate limiting. If you want to use rate limiting, then you can right move that one out from here.
Okay.
Here, and that what you can add here. See, so what my intention? My intention is to make you understand with the GraphQL, right? You can manage us. If you need rate limiting, you can do it. If you don't need rate limiting, you can also do it. For example, if you need, then you can move that one from that block and you can put it here. Clear?
It's like up to us only. We want
Yeah,
to do the rate limiting or
you
caching.
can
Or,
whatever you
Yeah,
want, you can
okay.
do. And here, what is important, you have to disable get in the request, right? So next, what we need to do, guys, remember, first of all, okay, let me go ahead and write. So this is my inter-server project. So let me enable Redis because caching is also there, right? And then I have to enable my service discovery. So open command prompt, execute this command. So which is going to enable the service discovery. So now you can open the console UI where it is going to store all the service registration endpoint. So currently no service is there. So once this is done, right, we need to understand, right, before proceeding and testing, we need to understand few concepts. How the naming convention is going to be there. Guys, remember, if you are having one DTO, right, order summary response DTO, then GraphQL will consider this as an order summary. So for example, right here we have created one type order summary, right? So what is the name we provided? This. So by default, so here what I am doing, I'm specifying the type explicitly. Clear? So if you do not specify, then it is this response DTO, request DTO, this thing it is going to ignore. Similarly, guys, remember property field naming convention, how it is happening. In your case, if you are using order ID is partial, right? Then it will convert them to like this, that is camel case naming convention. Every word first letter is going to be in a lower case. So if you provided any Pascal case, that will convert it into camel case. Method name, guys, remember, if you are providing the method name like get order summary async, then the GraphQL we'll remove this get keyword and this async keyword from the name, and it will convert this into camel case. So basically the name is going to be order summary. And here your parameter is going to be order ID. So something like this. So parameter name, if you provided the parameter name, right, those are coming into the picture. Any special parameter, right, like cancellation token, like services, they are simply going to be ignored from the GraphQL syntax. Right? For example, if you are having this parameter order ID, service aggregator logger, then that method name is going to be only order summary, that is in first class camel case, and that parameter name is going to be order ID. UUID here is very similar to our GUID. So then we need to understand this HDL, and that HDL I'm going to show you practically, right? So let me first show you this gateway project. Let me set this as my startup project. Set as a startup project. Now, please observe. So I'm running the application. Guys, till now the implementation part is clear. How to implement the GraphQL.
Yes.
So this is see, even if I want, I can create a simple example application, but how to implement in real time is that understanding that part is very, very important. Right. So here you can see this is what I created. Next, what I need to do, I need to access the GraphQL endpoint. So you have to type this one, GraphQL. See, this is what I'm getting, right? So here you can see in the root type, right? It defined two methods. One is gateway query and another one is gateway, sorry, two types. Type means what? Now, whatever the types are available, that what you can consume. So in my case, so how many types we defined for the read operation and write operation? Those type it is going to listed here. Clear? So what is this gateway query? So in my case, you can see uh, I have created one type here. Let me go to the GraphQL. So schema. So this gateway type means here what are the query type and what are the mutation type. So gateway query type I specify gateway query, and mutation type I specify gateway mutation. These two class what we specified, these are nothing but these two classes. Okay, let me do one thing. Take this one and open this one here. Okay, fine. This two type is clear. So in the schema, you can see this two type is specifying, or in the reference, you can see this one, these two. Clear?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. The second tab, here, whatever you are seeing here is the HDL. And this HDL is the heart of your application. See, what are the things? Schema. Schema means what? Whatever the type you specified here, this is nothing but schema. Schema is going to tell what are the query and mutations available. So one query is available, gateway query. Another query is mutation is available, that is gateway mutation. So customer info means what? Whatever the type you specified. So in this example, right, you can say this is type. These are the type, and all these types are there. You can see, and some of the input right input is there. So how many input we defined in my application? Let's tell me how many input type we defined.
3.
Three.
Why I'm saying three, because if you go to this three input type, so they are right. They are inherited from the input type object. So in the SDL, is it showing these three types? Address input, order input, and place order input? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
So in address input, right, in the address input type, whatever the name I provided, is that name displaying here?
Yes.
Yes.
And is the properties here created here using camel case naming convention? Here ID, address line 1, address line 2. And here you can see ID. I is lowercase, address line A is lowercase. Yes or no?
Yes.
So all these three input are right. So whatever input type you specify, those input types are there. Now, this type means what? These are the output types. So how many output types we specified here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now come to this part and you can see. So apart from this, this is one output type customer info. These two are not output type. So this is one output type, the order info, third one. Fourth one, order item, order product info, order summary, payment info, place order payload, and user error. So all the 9 output types are there.
Yes.
Right. Now, so apart from this, here you can see the schema. Schema defining one gateway query, which you can use for query, and another one is mutation, which you can use for doing mutation. So for the gateway query, right, you can say this is my gateway query type. Here you can see what is the method name.
Order
If,
summary.
if you get to a query, this is my get order summary async. So what I mentioned, this get async, they are going to be removed automatically. And whatever the name remaining order summary, that will become a camel case naming convention. Is this the camel case naming convention? And whatever the order
Yes.
ID we defined here, that is already in camel case, so no need to convert. So that is what it is saying. And in this case, right, what is the orders? What is the return type? Order summary response DTO. And this order summary response DTO is used by which output type? Is this the output type which is representing the order summary response DTO?
Yes.
What is the name we specified here?
Order summary.
Is that order summary coming here as the return type?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So next, what you can see some enums. So in the application, right, in the right where we registered, so did we specify some enum, payment method enum, order status enum?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So whatever the order status enum and payment status enum, those values you can see. So here you can see if you go to order status enum, so this is COD, credit card, debit card, UPI, wallet, net banking. And here you can see this is COD, credit card, debit card, net banking. See, in this case, it is already converting this value into a format. And that format is going to be this one. But internally, he will manage this. So whatever the fixed value you specified, credit card, one word. So whenever it is finding a enum, and if two word are there, right, two word means capital letter coming somewhere, then it will keep them using underscore. And as you know, everything is going to be in capital case. Clear?
Yes.
So now if you go to inside, nothing is there, reference is there now. So how I can do the operation? See, if you go to this order query, gateway query. So in gateway query, you can see this thing is coming. So in gateway query, what is the input parameter?
Order ID.
And what is the output data it is going to return? Order
Order
summary.
summary.
Now, if you come to this gateway mutation, what is the input? Place order input. And
Place
what
order
is the
input.
output? What is the output type? Place order payload.
Place order payload.
Now, if you go to this mutation and if you click on this order summary, so in this case, it is saying this order summary can return this data. Customer data it can return, each parcel it can return, order it. See, whenever you are saying this question mark means what? These are mandatory field, right? So order ID, payment, product, warning. And in customer info, these are the field you can specify in the query. How to specify that what we are going to discuss. Similarly, if you go to this product info, here you can see this is an array. So whenever you are saying the square bracket and this means what it is going to return a list of a product. And what are the product data? It can return all these informations. Similarly, if you come to this one, right, gateway mutation, you can place. So as part of a response, it is going to return this data. Here, this is the order item input, it is an array. Similarly, as part of an input, it is going to take, so this is my output. So it will return me the order. So why I'm saying this is order, if you look at this payload, right, order item, right, uh, order placed output type, place order payload type. What is that? So it is containing two things. One is user error, another one is order. So in this case, you can see this is order, right, and this is going to be error. So these two things it is returning, and this error is going to be user error, and this is going to be your order. So order output type, if you go, you can see the name is order. Clear?
Yes.
Right? So this is how the schema is designed. So now within this schema, you can also do the operations. Right. So, right before doing the operation, first of all, we need to understand the schema. So let me first show you the syntax, and then, right, I will show you how you can do the operations. Understanding the syntax is very easy. See, the syntax is something like this query. If you are doing a query, you have to start with a query. Sir, if I am going to do a mutation operation, then you have to start with the mutation. So this value is going to tell what type of operation it is being performed, so that he can validate whether this is part of a query or this method is part of your, right, what I can say, mutation. So if I'm saying query, then this method should be part of your query. So using this query, I can specify the query data. So using this query, I can specify the query data. So how? Now this is going to be a GraphQL syntax, and this GraphQL syntax is composed of two parts. First part, what data you are going to pass. I mean, you can specify what data you are going to return, input type and output type. And for input type, that variable you need to specify, right? So if this is not clear at the moment, right, let me give you that clarity. So this is my order summary method. Am I right? So this method expecting one input parameter, order ID. And this order ID, I'm specifying a variable order ID. And in the query, I declare that variable, that order ID. And that order ID variable value, I need to pass something like this. And within this part, right, order summary, right, I can specify within this open and close curly braces, you can specify whatever the data you need. So if this is not clear at the moment, let us try to understand this thing, right, with some example. So for this purpose, right, what I'm going to do, let me start all my projects, multiple project I selected, apply, okay. Using GraphQL is very easy, right? And I will show you some different kind of examples so that you will get the clarity. So let me first run all my projects. So if all the projects are run, so this should be registered within the right console service. Okay. So all these services are registered. Still API gateway and a notification is not registered. Ideally, they will also register. My API gateway is not registered. Yes, this is also registered. Okay, let me see whether it is working fine or not. Okay, I'm getting the instance, right? This is my token. Now I want to show you different example. First of all, that the GraphQL endpoint is right, protected with JWT token. So I need to pass the JWT token in the authorization header. In the request body, right, I want to show you the different examples, right? How you are going to use. So in this case, what is this? The service has been created. Okay, fine. Showing this one. Okay, fine. That gateway service, if not registered, that is also fine, right? Because there is no microservices should be running. So now, in this case, right, API gateway, GraphQL. So in this case, you can say, first of all, you need to use the query, and then you need to specify your order ID, and here order ID is a parameter, so variable. That's what you need to specify, and here you can specify what properties you want to return. The same thing, right? I'm going to show you here. So that query, I'm creating one JSON object where I'm going to specify two things. One is query or mutation and variable. So in the query, I can define the right query part, and in variable, I can define the variable part. In the query part, I can define a variable order ID. So that order ID value, right? So whenever I'm using dollar symbol, means it's a variable, and that type is UID, and this parameter means it's a mandatory value. And in the variable section, whatever the parameter I defined here, that value I need to specify. This is one order ID. And in order summary, right, what I'm going to do, so basically this order summary is nothing but, it is the method that what I'm going to call. And this method, right, the order summary, you can have some different method, whatever method, and this method accept this order ID, and that value is going to be this one. So using this query, first of all, you need to define whatever all input parameters are required by this method. So that parameter you need to define, and for that parameter, whatever the variable value, actual value you want, you can pass them here, right? And then uh, this is my object, right? That what I'm going to return. So in this case, I'm only going to return the order ID. So let me call this one.
Should we use raw or should we go with GraphQL? There is a radio button.
Sorry?
Like it's a JSON only. No,
Yeah,
while
that is,
you're using
sorry. I'm getting this. See, in this case, this is my method that what I'm right calling. This method accept one order ID. That order ID I'm defining here. And for that order ID, whatever the value is required, that's what I'm specifying in the variables. And then within this JSON object, I'm specifying what output I want. I want only order ID. Now, if you go to the customer, right? I mean, if you go to this one, right? Schema, reference, order gateway query, order summary. So here, this order ID is available. Yes or no?
yes, yes.
So that's what I'm specifying here. I want only order ID. No, sir, I don't want order ID. I want some more information. What more information? Now I want the complete order info. What is that parameter here which is containing the complete order info? What is that parameter name?
Order,
Order,
order.
order. And in order info, what are the properties available? All these properties are available. Currency,
Yes.
discount, order date, all these things. So this data I want. So how I can specify? And the process is going to be same. Same order ID, same method. And here I'm creating the object. And in this object, this is my order object. I want the order number, space order date, space status, space right, subtotal amount, discount amount, shipping charges, tax amount, total amount, currency, payment method, whatever. So I don't need, suppose I don't need this currency, you can remove that currency, fine. So now execute this one and you should see the data as expected. Clear? No, sir, I don't want the order, right? I want the customer info. So can I do this? Yes, absolutely. So what you need to do, you can specify the customer. So here, but guys, remember, you can only specify those things which are available. Customer is a parameter. So that what I can specify customer, it's a complex object. So I can specify customer, and as part of customer, whatever the data I want to return. User ID, full name, email, mobile, and profile URL. So in this case, you can see in the customer object, whatever email, full name, mobile, profile URL, and photo. Suppose profile URL I don't need, so you can remove this one. I don't write, and you can invoke, and whatever the property you specify, that what you can return. No, sir, I don't want this. I want all the product list, right, which are available. That is fine. So in this case, you can see in this case, there is also products array. So is this products one array? Yes, it is an array. And whatever the information is available, is what I can specify here. So this is my products. And as part of products, whatever the data you want to retrieve, you can specify and you will get those information only, right? Now, I only right. Similarly, you can access the payment info. Similarly, I want the complete right payload. Complete means data from multiple fields. Suppose this is my order. I want the order ID, and from the order object, I need this data. From the customer object, I need this data. From the products, I need this data. From the payment, I need this data. So all this information. Similarly, if you want, right, some additional something you want to remove, right, from the customer, right. Let me first show you the complete data. See, I'm getting the complete information. Some of the data I want to remove. So currency I don't need, profile URL I don't need, this transaction reference I don't need. Then can I get the data accordingly? Yes. So whatever the property I specify, only those data I'm getting. Clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is fine. Sir, how I can create a new order? So for that purpose, right, what I need to do, I have provided one type. What is the type? Get mutation. So what is that method name? Place order. What it expect? Place order payload. And what it is return? Right, it is going to, sorry, what is the data it will expect? Place order input. What it is return? Place order payload. So in this case, input is mandatory. You cannot compromise with the input data. So now let me go ahead and show you this thing. The same endpoint, GraphQL endpoint, and here you can see query. And now what I need to specify here, it is a mutation. Earlier it was a query, but now it is a mutation. Previously, whatever example we created, that query type is going to be query. And now that query type is going to be mutations. So in mutation, so in this case, right, you can see it expect one input parameter. What is that parameter type? Place order input, right? So it expect one input parameter, that is place order input. Suppose right, you can write also place order input. This is the output. The input object is going to be this one. So here it is going to contain all this information. That what I can specify. What is the input object type? Place order input. This is input object. And for this input object, whatever the input data is required, that what I can specify using this input variable, right? User ID, payment method, shipping address, billing address, items, product quantity, all these things. And then I'm calling the place order method. The input parameter is going to be this one, and as a response, whatever the property you find, you can right, get those. Suppose I need response. In response, you can see this is the input data is specified, and in response, right, I want this data, user information. I don't need user information. Order, yes, I need order information. So all this information it is going to return. Out of all this information, whatever the information you want, you can specify. For example, I'm specifying all this information and send this request. So one order is created, and this is the data it is returning. Right? Suppose some shipping charges, total tax amount, right? So order date. Suppose I don't want this payment method and order date. Is that possible? See, currently payment method order date is returning. I don't want this thing. Okay, you can remove this thing. Right? Clear, guys?
Yeah.
So this is how GraphQL is working in real time. So in this case, no overfetching, no underfetching. Whatever the data is required, that data I can specify, and the server is going to respond with those data. Clear?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
This is how you need to implement GraphQL. So tomorrow we are going to discuss circuit breaker. That is also one of the important concepts. Clear? Anyone having any question, they can ask. Is that clear, everybody?
Yeah, please.
Yes. Anyone having any question?
No questions.
Thank you, guys.
Tomorrow, same timing?
Yes, yes. Because I'm not getting time in the morning. So that is the reason why I cancelled all the Angular sessions this week. And in the evening time only, I'm going to take your session till Sunday. Mostly Sunday, I will not take session because I hope everyone is waiting for that cricket match. Till Saturday, we are going to take the session. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.